So I get to introduce Dr. Brian Greenberg. He really fired me up when he was giving me the cliff notes of what he was going to share. And he's a psychologist. He works with Life Moves. He mentioned fatherlessness, and I said, okay, I'll set you up. I'll have you go after Stuart. So Dr. Greenberg, take it from here.
Good morning, everyone. It's hard to follow two super motivational, wicked, smart people. Let's hear it for Morgan and Stuart. Unbelievable. Great job. We run 27 facilities at Life Moves. I'm not going to talk about those today. Maybe we'll get into them, what works, what doesn't work in conversation later. I want to talk about, first of all, you know, the homeless people are the last person that it's okay to stigmatize, right? It's okay to come home from a party or a book club. It's not okay to say, oh my God, there were so many Jews there. There's so many people from the LGBTQ community. There were so many blacks there, Latinos. We can't say any of that anymore. But we can come back from a trip to San Francisco or Oakland or San Jose and say, my God, it was terrible. There were so many homeless people. I'll never go back there again. This is the last population that it's okay to disparage. That it's okay to talk that way about. And that's why it's so important that you are all here and we're talking about this today. So let me start by thanking everyone here for leaning into this. So I'm going to speak briefly about why they're homeless, the scale of the issue, and how we might go about addressing it. I'm only going to speak for 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to try to bring up some things that maybe we haven't considered before. First of all, why are there unhoused, and why has there been this huge growth in homelessness? Let's start by talking about family structure. We once resided in extended families, and we now reside in nuclear families. All the unhoused people that we shelter, they all got a kid somewhere, or a parent somewhere, or a sibling somewhere, or a nephew. They got families. Grandma or grandpa are no longer as frequently living with us in our homes. It's simply no longer acceptable or commonplace or welcoming for the extended family members to reside with us. This is a huge cause of homelessness. The average age in our shelter is over 50 years of age. We're basically geriatric centers. We're senior homes. During the day, working age people are out working, and the people in our shelters are in walkers and wheelchairs and canes. It's an elder facility during the day. Just as importantly, how we create our nuclear families has also changed. When I was young, it was all based on race or religion. Are you going to marry in your religion? Are you going to marry a black person if you're black? Are you going to marry a white person? Now we pair up according to our income level. Physicians no longer marry their high school sweetheart that didn't go to college. Retail clerks don't marry attorneys and architects. We pair up with someone equally educated, but this is also reflective of socioeconomic status. This helps maintain entrenched intergenerational affluence as well as intergenerational poverty. The second cause of homelessness I want to talk about is addiction, and specifically the new generation of drugs. Three factors have caused this new generation of drugs. First is science and technology, just what biotech and science can do to drugs. The second is the profit motive for recreational drugs. And the third are the drug laws in criminalizing drugs. And these three things have caused drugs to be smaller and easier to transport, profitable, smaller and stronger, and more addictive. So they're smaller, they're stronger, they're more addictive, And importantly, users get addicted so much more quickly. And the human condition, it can't keep up with the technology of drugs. Let me talk about this just for a minute. Coca. People chewed coca leaves for 10,000 years. Coca morphed into cocaine. Cocaine morphed into crack. Now we have a methamphetamine problem in this country. Again, smaller, stronger, more addictive. Poppy and opium. People smoked opium for thousands of years. Opium morphed into heroin. Heroin morphed into black tar heroin. Now we have a fentanyl crisis that's deadly, and people get hooked in a matter of weeks. Cannabis, flower. When I was in college 35 years ago, flower was 4% THC. Now cannabis, it's common in a retail store to get flower that's 40% THC. It's 10 times stronger than when I was an adolescent. People have a problem with cannabis. Notably, alcohol hasn't changed in the last 200 years. 10% of this country has always had an alcohol use disorder, 11, 12, 13%. It's never dropped below 1 in 10. And that number hasn't changed because alcohol hasn't changed. So people get hooked really quick. But we don't have more addiction or even more mental illness here than in other places. But we have a lot more homeless people. So let's talk about why that is. Let's talk about the cost of housing. We're in Mountain View. Rents here are over $3 a foot a month. In the Midwest, in the Deep South, in the Plain States, rents are still under $1 a foot. So a 1,000 square foot apartment here is over $3,000. A 1,000 square foot apartment in the rest of the country is under $1,000. Cost of housing prices, here they're $1,000 a foot. In the rest of the country, there are many places where you can get homes for $100 a foot. The home I grew up in Cleveland, a starter home, sold during the pandemic for $84,000. I lived there for 18 years, the first 18 years of my life. Sold for $84,000 during the pandemic, an 800 square foot bungalow, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, in a nice neighborhood. So in tandem then with this, the housing stock for extremely marginalized populations is vanishing. What we now call PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, was shell shock in World War I. When my Uncle Joe returned from World War II, it was called battle fatigue. My Uncle Joe developed a serious thought disorder in the war, could not function independently, and he certainly could not work. Yet my father, his brother, a used car salesman, could pay the $20 a week for an SRO, a single-room occupancy hotel room with the bathroom down the hall. Now our SROs are loft living. There are no more SROs. And those SROs that are now loft living, they're $3 or $4 a foot a month to rent. Our SROs, our single-room housing units, they've become high-end housing. So those are not the only causes of homelessness. There are many others. I'm not going to cover them all here today. Hopefully we can discuss them. But I want to talk about what this has resulted in and kind of the landscape of homelessness for a minute. So in Alameda County, Oakland is obviously the large, densely populated urban center. That's the center of that. In 2022, there were about 10,000 unhoused people in Alameda County. That was 20% more than 2 years before. Notably, of those 10,000 people, 75%, or 3 in 4, are unsheltered. In Santa Clara County, where we are now, it's about the same, about 10,000 unhoused, and 3/4 of those are unsheltered as well. Santa Clara County, where we are now, people may not be aware, has more unhoused people than San Francisco. We all hear about San Francisco, but the county we're in right now beats San Francisco, unfortunately, in the number of homeless people. To give you an idea of the scale of the issue, so you can kind of wrap your brain around it, the city of Santa Cruz is surrounded by greenbelt on 3 sides. On the 4th side of Santa Cruz is the ocean, so it's a circumscribed city. There are about 62,000 people that live in the city of Santa Cruz, and there are over 2,000 homeless. 1 in 30 people in Santa Cruz sleeps outside. I think it's almost easier to think about that than to think about these larger urban populations. And of course, the growth in vehicularly unhoused is, the vehicularly housed is off the charts. Wherever we go, we see oversized vehicles, vehicles not meant for long-term habitation. They have individuals, couples, and families living them. And there are, of course, way more people living in cars and automobiles. In Los Angeles alone, there's 19,000 people living in cars in Los Angeles alone. So what's the solution for this, and why would any sane person think that technology or coming together or Web3 could help? Let me offer some quick initial ideas to get our wheels spinning. I'll give 3 thoughts. The first is credit scores and credit histories. The service sector wages and poverty in affluent areas like the Bay Area results in many individuals and households having marginal and poor credit scores. And a credit score is really a reputation score. It's a reputational score dominated by a few companies in an ultra-centralized system. And a poor credit score is a super significant barrier to exiting homelessness and securing housing. Decentralizing this reputational baggage and providing people with an opportunity to demonstrate their best selves or their new selves or their best efforts would significantly reduce barriers for exiting the streets for many people. The second example I want to discuss is how we might more effectively harness all the positive energy around empathy for the unhoused. We have so much virtue signaling around homelessness. We're all guilty of this, and for good reason, and for the best of intentions. And I am not disparaging virtue signaling. Public displays of empathy around homelessness are everywhere, and they're well-intentioned. We're all familiar with the positive awareness campaigns and the soft stories about homelessness on the local news. And who among us hasn't served Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner at a homeless shelter and then gone home and talked about it? We want to signal that we're virtuous and that we can and do make a difference. We need a way to leverage this goodwill, to maximize folks' talents and scale the community's efforts. This is not easy. And serving meals and pasting it on our social media around the holidays may not be the best use of each of our talents, our household talents, and certainly not the community's talents. So big data can inform the best use for each of us. It needs to tell us how to use our best talents. Teachers and dentists, mechanics and therapists, carpenters and tax preparers, techies and chefs. We need to make better use of our time and skill and interest and better match these to our needs. It's going to take a world of talent to make a difference. Finally, if Web3 is going to live up to the best of what's envisioned and be more humane and more democratized and more decentralized, we're going to have to figure out a way for it not to crush the most disenfranchised among us, including the unhoused. Sorry. AI engines and large language models and big data are shifting the power to large banks and institutions so that these institutions can better predict and better discriminate. This aggregating of information is going to put people in buckets. Powerful entities will make predictions on who is a good bet for housing and loans and employment and more. The challenge is to flip this system on behalf of persons without a laptop or even a table to put it on. When I was in graduate school training to be a psychologist, it was a requirement to undergo psychotherapy for 2 years. Of course, the first thought my peers and I had is that the school wanted to be certain that we didn't have significant psychological problems, and that if we did have problems, we'd have the opportunity to work them out. But that's not why therapy was mandated. We were mandated to be in therapy as change agents, so that we as change agents would have a deep understanding that change is possible. That change is possible and real and dramatic. And once we understand that people can change, we intuitively understand that systems can change. The current homeless crisis is not inevitable or unalterable or unsolvable. And I'm grateful that you're all leaning into this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.